which we'll take part in. I'm not sure exactly when that is, and also the summer retreat there. And we're also talking something about maybe going to this really strange place called Czech.
Yes. That's why I'm asking what could we think about it, about maybe July or something.
Yeah, it's coming around that time where we're starting to discuss everything. I'm really feeling sad because I have 13 books that we were working on, and we did one of them and a little bit of work on some others. But they've been getting on my case about doing reprints, which has been taking the website. And they've been doing some things, so it's been a good time.
The devotees at Slovakia, they're also quite hopeful to host you there.
Okay. I can tell you what we're going to be giving priority to is quiet places where we can have some association and give some classes, but we want to go places probably for a week or 2 weeks.
Maybe if they're on the way to Lithuania.
Yeah, especially if they're on the way to Lithuania, and do some writing in that. Anyway,
we should still be at Debrecen?
We're still in Debrecen right now. They haven't kicked us out yet.
No, but even for that period, you can always return to Debrecen. It's like we'll be working as your base, or
which period?
Well, yeah, different periods, different. We'll
until the 24th of May, we are in Debrecen primarily. Then we go to Budapest and Ukraine, and then after Ukraine, we come back here for a while
to Debrecen.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to Serbian summer camp.
On the 20th.
19th of June, I believe, maybe 20th of June.
Yeah, 20th is the start of the festival. We'll go there too.
And after that, I was going to talk to someone called Dila Pushottam, I don't know. But that was going to be a more private talk.
Yeah, because why I'm asking about the Debrecen thing is that the Eka Chakra in Slovakia is like something like 2 hours drive from there. It's really short.
They should come.
It's almost as close as Ypsilanti from Debrecen. Maybe a little. Ypsilanti's a
little. They've just been here, Mangal with his wife. They've been last weekend. They've been here. We had a good sangha with Pratapa Rudra and Harichandra, and it was nice. And we were speaking about the possibility to have you here in Czech soon.
we should discuss things.
We should discuss this, but
everything's a little complicated.
Yeah, we should discuss it more.
Okay, we can have a call later.
Yeah, because it involves a few things that, yeah.
So the Hari Prabhu is putting up, you see behind you, these are the used clothes that are for sale, if you're interested.
There's a good, simple Indian system. Just put it on the rack.
It's a good, simple. Okay, let's go ahead. This is already on YouTube right now. All this important stuff.
Okay. Something like yesterday's morning class. The end was like something extra, what probably was not meant to be there.
Oh, really? I didn't know when they stopped.
Yesterday's morning class?
Yeah.
What was it at the end?
No, something like last 8 minutes wasn't a class. Was just
moving around and picking things up and whatever.
Yes. You complaining actually about your hand or about your arm. I was concerned about it.
You should be concerned.
It's still there. They're talking about cutting it off, but
why you put this in the atmosphere? This is madness.
Your humor is too black, Prabhu.
That's American humor. Exactly. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. You started this one?
Yeah.
So we can recite some Mangala Charana prayers here. Let's see. Tirtharaj Prabhu, would you like to read the Sanskrit and maybe Leela Purushottam read the English?
Yes. Amagyanaatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurulmitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam.
When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this world, within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet?
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna, Chaitanya, and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Shrivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Shri Krishna, along with their associates, Shri Lalita and Vishaka.
He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute.
O my dear Krishna, O ocean of mercy, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya.
I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu and you are very dear to Lord Krishna.
Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Paridanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls.
Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha.
O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you.
Yat Advaitam Brahmopanishaditat Apyasya Tanubha Ya Atmantaryami Purusha Itisosyam Shavibhavaha Shat Aishwaryah Purno Ya Iha Bhagavan Sasvayam Ayam Chaitanyat Krishna Jagati Paratatvam Param Iha.
What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body, and the Lord known as the Supersoul is but his localized plenary portion. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him.
Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Radini Shaktirasmat Ekatmanav Apibhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Adhunata Dayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Dyuti Subalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam.
The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself.
Chirat adatam nijagupta vitam swapremana mamritam atyudaraha apamaram yovitatara gauraha Krishna janebhyastam aham prapade.
The most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Gaur Krishna, distributed to everyone, even the lowest of man, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to the people at any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Okay. We can go on and we can recite this other prayer to Narottam Das Thakur. Let's see. We can all recite this together. Shri Krishna Nama Amrita Barshi Vaktra Chandra Prabhat Vastatamo Varaya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Tasmai Namo Nama Shri Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He's a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev, the nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. Gora Graganya Ganagocha Goloduharam Goranga Gura Tamagopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami. So we're continuing with Prema-bhakti-candrika. We're today on the fourth verse of the second section. And we have some very interesting things. Let's see, I'll go ahead and put this on the board. There's a lot of thoughts to share today. Yoginyasi karmi gyani anya deva pujaka jnani ihaloke dure parihari karma dharma dukkha shok jeva take anya yoga charibhaja giribharadari. So Narottam says that we should give up the association of the yogis, sannyasis, karmis, gyanis, meditators, and the worshippers of the demigods. We should also abandon attachment for all varieties of fruitive activities, religious duties, distresses, lamentations, and material objects, and just worship Krishna, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a short purport to this, just commenting that the word Anya Yoga refers to attachment to our wife, children, and material objects. So if we contemplate this verse, he divides it primarily into three sections, Dhuri Parihari, and he gives 6 different personalities. The Dhuri Parihari that we should keep away from. Dhuri means intense or to keep from a distance, and Parihari means to give up. Dhuri Parihari, there's 6 persons we want to keep away from. And then he mentions 4 different things that we should give up. Anya Yoga Chadi. And then he goes on to say that Bhaja Girivara Dari, that we should worship the lifter of Govardhan Hill. These are the 3 different divisions of this verse today. A lot of these subjects we've already spoken on before. I'm not going to get into elaborate discussion on all of them, but a little something for each. Let's just see here. So first of all, well, the 6 different things he says we should keep away from. Dhuri Parihari, we keep one a distance from these things. From yogis, from nyasis. Nyasis means like sannyasi. Doesn't mean we give up association with sannyasis, but it means we give up association with people who are too much attached to renunciation. And the karmis, the gyanis, anya deva puja and pujakas, actually, we should give up associating with people who want to worship the devatas and the dhyanis. We should give up the meditators. So already previously we've spoke something about Anyadeva Puja. Narottam's mentioned it several times, and how we should give up association with, we should give up worship of the devatas, and we spoke something about what that means. Today I'd like to look a little bit about what it means and why we should give up yoga, and what that particularly means. It doesn't mean, it's a little bit of a confusing thing. Even in regards to my Guru Maharaj, sometimes he would tell devotees that you should not practice Hatha Yoga. But Guru Maharaj himself was practicing Hatha Yoga before he joined. And he would tell it to devotees. Why would he tell that? There's a story I heard from Bhaktidas Prabhu, Prabhupada's senior disciple. They were with Srila Prabhupada in, I almost remember the name of the park. This park, big park in San Diego. And they were going for morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, and they saw some young hippie standing on his head. And one of the devotees was making fun of him. Just see, they're doing like this yogis. And Prabhupada said, no, this is very healthy. And all of a sudden the devotees all became very quiet. and somebody said, well, Prabhupada, can we do that? And then immediately all the devotees, they gathered around Srila Prabhupada. They were very, very interested. What is Prabhupada going to say? And Prabhupada paused for a moment. And he said, no, better that you don't do that. So Prabhupada actually said different things at different times to different devotees about yoga. Yoga, if we're doing yoga for our health, that's something required. Actually, let's see if I can even look it up. I found a really nice statement from Srila Prabhupada just a day or two ago that a friend of mine posted on Facebook. Let's see, I get some good, here it is right here. Maybe I can share this thing. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah. So this is a talk Prabhupada gave, an arrival talk in Hawaii in 1969. And Srila Prabhupada, he said that it is important to keep the body fit and healthy so that we will not meet the obstacle of ill health while serving Krishna. Ill health may hinder one's service, so we want to avoid it as much as possible. Now, I would suggest that this is a primary point. It's described by Rupa Goswami that our primary thing is smarta gasatatam Vishnu vismarta abhinajatichit. We always want to remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And whatever is favorable for that, we accept. So if we just sit around, like some people I know, behind a computer 10 hours a day, and we don't do any exercise at all, and we become very, very weak and useless, then you have problems with your shoulder, you have problems with digestion, and so many things, and you're useless. So it's good to do some exercise, but we don't want to do so much that it detracts us from our bhakti. Now, I'd like to go to the 15th chapter, the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, which I think is more of a classic discussion about what yoga means and the kind of reasons why Narottam Das Thakur is telling us to give it up. So this is the beginning of the chapter. Uddhava is speaking with Krishna, and he asks this question, Kaya dharanaya kasvit katam va siddhavachuta kativa siddhayo bruhi yoginam siddhido bravan. He says, my dear Krishna, my dear Achyuta, by what process can mystic yoga be achieved? What is the nature of that perfection? How many mystic perfections are there? Please explain these things, because you're the bestower of all mystic perfections. And then Krishna, in text 4 to 5, he speaks about 8 different primary mystic cities. And then in the verses after that, he speaks about 10 secondary mystic cities. Anima mahima murtir lagima prapta indriyai prakamya sruti dustesu shakti prerana isita gunesh asangovasita yat kamas tad avasyati ekta me sudaya somya astap otpatika mataha. So I numbered these in the translation. He says, among the 8 primary mystic perfections, they are, number 1, anima. You can become smaller than the smallest. You can walk underneath a door. You can become as small as the atom. You can disappear. Mahima, you can become greater than the greatest. You can become like a great mountain in size. Lagima, you can become lighter than the lightest. You can float in the air. Prapti Siddhi means that you can get whatever it is that you desire. You can be sitting in Hungary and you can get some avocados from Mexico just by your desires, by reaching out and doing that. Prakamya Siddhi means that you can attain, you can enjoy anything that you want, either in this world or in the next world. Isita Siddhi, you can manipulate the subpotencies of Maya. You can do all kinds of amazing magical things with that. Vasita Siddhi means that you're not impeded by the 3 modes of material nature. And Kamavayasita Siddhi means that you can obtain anything, anywhere, up to the highest possible limit. And so these are the 8 mystic cities which people desire. And there's 10 secondary mystic cities, which Krishna describes in the 2 verses after that. And maybe we'll just skip the Sanskrit, but just the shlokas, but just go through these just very briefly. I remember years ago when I was a bhakti leader in Los Angeles, one of the first classes I would give to the new bhaktas, I would describe them about mystic cities, because we found there were a lot of people who were very, very interested in that subject matter. And it was something we would also speak about sometimes at the Sunday feast programs. You can get all these things. And then in this chapter 15 of the 11th canto, Krishna explains how all those mystic cities are obtained. And ultimately, as we'll discover, and we won't go through all of them, but ultimately they're all obtained through the practice of bhakti. So the secondary mystic cities are Arnima Matvam, which means that you won't have any problem being hungry or thirsty. Dehi Asmin. Dehi Asmin, while you're in this body. I think I made a mistake there. That goes together with Anurmi Matvam, Dehi Asmin. So I missed the list of these. Anyway, we'll still go through. Dura, he says, what is it here? Dura Shravana Darshanam.
That's 2 qualities.
Dura Shravana Darshanam means that you can hear and see things that are very far away. That's also called Zoom in our modern world today. Dura Shravana Darshanam. Manojava. Manojava means that you can move the body at the speed of the mind. Kamarupa, you can obtain any kind of body that you want. You can become, and people, we have this also today. A boy wants to become a girl, so he does that through some operation. A girl wants to become a boy, or someone wants to become thin, someone wants to become fat. They can manipulate their body in so many different ways. Women can have bigger breasts, they can have bigger buttocks. That's Kamarupa. But you can also do these things with so-called modern science. Parakaya Praveshanam. You can enter into the body of anyone you want. Swachandra Mrityu, you can decide when you want to die. Devanam Saha Krida Anudarshanam, you can get to witness, you can watch the pastimes of the Devatas and the heavenly damsels together. Yata Sankalpa Samsiddhi, according to your determination. How do they translate this? You can execute your determination, and agya apatiyata, you can give some whatever instruction that you give will become absolute, and everybody will have to follow your instruction. So Krishna gives a long explanation about mystic yoga in this chapter, but then toward the end of the chapter, Krishna labels it all as a waste of time. And he says that actually all of these things, they come from bhakti. He says, Anantayan Vedantyeta Yunjito Yogam Uttamam Maya Sampad Yamana Shakala Kshapana Hetavaha. Learned experts in devotional service state that the mystic perfections of yoga that I've mentioned are actually impediments and a waste of time for someone who's practicing the supreme yoga by which one achieves all perfection in life directly from me. And what is that supreme yoga? Krishna in the next verse goes on to explain it's bhakti yoga. And he says that janmoshadi, whatever that you can get by janma, by a high birth, whatever you can get by oshadi. And there's a lot of people who are very attracted by this oshadi, these very mystic kind of herbs. And so many people, isn't it? Siddhari Prabhu. There's so many people that they not just drugs, but also they call recreational drugs in America, but different herbs and things by which you'll have great memory, you'll have great bodily strength, you'll get this, you'll get that. All those potencies you get by that oshadi, by the tapa, by doing some austerities, chanting mantras. Whatever you can get by all those things, he says, whatever cities you can get, perfections and all that, all those things you get just by practicing bhakti, by doing yoga from me. So bhakti is the essence of all those things. But the problem is that if we take up these things, then there's a lot of anxiety. And we see people who are really, really interested in these things today. If you don't believe me, look at all the movies they make on superheroes. Everybody wants to be a superhero. Everybody wants to have some kind of power. They can turn invisible. They can stop a bullet. They can jump. They can fly. They can do so many things. And these kind of things are a great impediment because they're, as Krishna says, they're a waste of time. Kalakshepana. They just, because they detract me from the real purpose of life, real understanding of ourself. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu tells Sanatana Rupa Goswami, a common verse which devotees often recite, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama. This is the nature of the Krishna Bhaktas. They're nishkam, they don't desire anything, and therefore ataiva shanta. They're always peaceful. But bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta. Those people who are desiring material enjoyment, who want liberation, who want mystic perfections from yogis, they have desires for all this. Sakale ashanta. All those persons are always very disturbed. And we have something for them, even in our Krishna conscious movement. Some people, they come and they want to be a great controller. They want to take over things, and they think that by my great management power, I can solve all the problems of the society. And then Srila Prabhupada would give them some opportunity for that. But it reminds me of the story that we hear in Braj about Madhu Mangal, who was desiring to be like Krishna, because he saw wherever Krishna would go, everybody was giving him ladus and sweets and things. And Madhu Mangal was saying, this is not fair, this isn't right. Look, Krishna Kana, you're a Vaishya, and I'm a Brahmin. I should be getting all these things. It's just not right. And Madhu Mangal was contemplating on it. Why are they giving Krishna all these things and not me? And then he thought, it must be this Pitambara dhoti, this beautiful yellow dhoti, and your vangsi, and your peacock feather, your flute and your peacock feather. So one day, Madhu Mangal, he asked Krishna, you please give me these things and let me use them. And Krishna did. And then Madhu Mangal started going places, and he would let people see the peacock feather, see a little bit of the flute and the dhoti, and they thought it was Krishna. And then people started giving ladus and different things, and Madhu Mangal was having a really good day. Meanwhile, in Mathura, Krishna had called Keshi, and he told Keshi that I want you to go to Vrindavan, and I want you to kill Krishna. And Keshi asked Kamsa then, well, how do I recognize Krishna? I think you may have figured it out by now. So Kamsa told him, he said, well, he has a peacock feather, he has a flute, and he has a yellow dhoti. So he came to Dhanuka came to Vrindavan, and he was looking around, and he saw Madhu Mangal with those things, and so he went running up to Madhu Mangal, and he kicked at Madhu Mangal. Keshi kicked at him, not Dhanuka, but Keshi. And when the wind coming from the hooves of Keshi's feet struck Madhu Mangal. He went flying in the air and landed and was bruised. And then he ran away and went back to Krishna crying, and he took off the peacock feather and the flute and the dhoti, and he said, Krishna, you take these. I don't want these things. So sometimes our renunciation is like that. We have some desire for something, but when we actually get it, we see how much misery there is in it. I've seen devotees who are they just can't do anything. They can't practice bhakti unless they get married. It's especially true for girls sometimes. Unless I get married, I'm just not going to be happy, and I just can't fix my mind. And then finally they get married, and they are so happy. Their happiness is just like the top of the world. You see them glowing at the time of their marriage. And then usually within a year or so, they have a baby, and then they're even glowing even more. And then you come and see them a year or two after that, when they have maybe another child, and they have a couple toddlers running around, a couple little terrorists, and they're completely stressed out. They haven't slept properly in 1 year or 2 years. And their husband is also fried because he got married for sense gratification. There's no more sense gratification going on because there's all these children running around. and maybe he's cheating on that wife, or he's lost attraction for her, and she's lamenting like anything. So therefore, Krishna says in the Gita that thing which is nectar in the beginning becomes like poison at the end. So Krishna gives a list of, Narottam Das Thakur gives a list of these things. The first is the yogis. The second is the nnyasis. And this is a big subject matter. Many times devotees, they think that bhakti means renunciation. This is a common understanding. And there's some support to that, because Srila Prabhupada many times, my Guru Maharaj many times, he would say, brahmachari life is a very nice life. It's a very simple life. You stay brahmachari. If you get married, then you're suffering and crying like anything. So better to stay brahmachari. So sometimes devotees, they think, that means that advancement means by someone who is a renunciate. But Rupa Goswami speaks about this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in the second chapter, the first section, he says, Rucham udva hatastatra janasya bhajane hare vishayesha garishto pi raga. Ragas prayo biliyate. I'm not sure how that S got in there. He says that if someone has some ruchi, some taste for bhajana hare, for worshiping the Lord, even if that person vishayesha garishto pi, he has very intense material attractions. He says, but if you practice this bhakti, the sadhana, for the most part, that it'll be destroyed during a time of sadhana without having to resort to vairagya. And this is the same thing for Gyan. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is given a beautiful verse in Sajjana Toshini in one article in 1891. Interesting verse. I have this over our desk. I like the verse very much, but I've never found it anywhere else in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings, and he didn't give a reference for it. It seems that this is something he wrote himself. Padile Shunile Kabu Krishna Prapti Noi. We may think that I'm going to attain Krishna, the translator said by erudition. But literally what it means, padile means to give talks. And Shunile by hearing lots of talks, lots of good classes and things. Padile Shunile Kabu Krishna Prapti Noi. I'm not going to get Krishna by dint of that, by expertise in hearing or by giving class, but Bhajile Vishuddha Bhave Tabi Krishna Pai. The Tabi Krishna Pai, the only way I'm going to get Krishna is Bhajile Vishuddha Bhave, only if I'm performing pure bhajan. I can't cheat with something else. And even though in our society people give a lot of respect if someone can quote verses and someone speaks nicely and they're a very entertaining speaker, and that's good. We should encourage that. It's a nice thing to use for Krishna. But those devotees who are speakers shouldn't have a misunderstanding and think, now I'm very advanced because I know how to tell a few jokes and I know a few shlokas. So Rupa Goswami spoke about this elaborately in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it's also spoke about in the Bhagavatam. There's a couple of other verses that he speaks about it in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's an important thing to understand. He says, Jnana Vairagyo Bhakti Pravesha Yopayogita. That in the beginning, Jnana and Vairagya have some utility to enter into bhakti. But at the same time, Isat Pratamam Eveti Nangatvam Uchitam Tayo. Nangatvam. They're not an anga of bhakti. We should understand that. And that's an important point. In other words, it's not that just by practicing Jnana or Vairagya by itself, you're going to become successful in bhakti. And we see in the world, there are many people who are very knowledgeable. There are many people who are very renounced. There are many people living on the street or living in the mountains or something, but they're not getting bhakti just by doing those things. On the other hand, if someone practices any of the mukhya angas of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, Navavidi Bhakti, which is described in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. If someone practices any of those angas of bhakti, even unknowingly, they're going to get at least some bhakti umukhi sakriti, some sakriti, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur says will lead to bhakti. And how that happens is it will grant us some opportunity for sadhu sangha, and then bhakti will come to us. So Rupa Goswami then goes on in the next verse. Yad ube chitta katinya hetu prayasatam mate sukumara sabeyayam bhaktista deta irita. So there's a problem with Jnana and Vairagya, because Jnana and Vairagya, they make the heart very hard. So bhakti by nature is very tender. Sukumara sabhavayam. The swabhav, the nature of bhakti is it's sukumara. It's a very gentle natured thing. So we want to practice bhakti because if we practice Jnana and Vairagya, then the heart becomes harsh. And for those of you who've been in ISKCON for longer than 10 years, you remember, especially in the earlier days of our movement, and still in some corners in the world today, there's a lot of stress on Vairagya and on Jnana. And sometimes the devotees who practice those things, they become a little hard-hearted, a little harsh with the devotees. We were giving a class once in one part of the world, I will just say that. And I was telling I was speaking that the Grihastha ashram, it's an ashram, it's a place where you practice bhakti. And practicing bhakti there, it means that you have to, because it's an ashram, that you need to tell your wife every day. Most of you heard me say this before, I think. Yes. Every day you should tell your wife, I love you and you're beautiful. The poor devotee who was translating for me was a brahmachari who got married about a year or two after that. His face was bright red. His face was more effulgent than his dhoti. While he was translating, he looked very, very disturbed. All the Matajis were very happy in the class. After the class, we went outside, and there's one Mataji who was speaking with Krishna Kun in her native language, and she was telling Krishna Kun, she was crying. And I became a little disturbed seeing that. And it turned out that what had happened, she got married, and her husband was a really nice guy, and he took her on a honeymoon to some resort in the mountains. But on the honeymoon, he also took his 2 brahmachari best friends with him. And his brahmachari best friends told him that your wife is Maya, you shouldn't stay in the same room with her, and you shouldn't eat food that's cooked by her. We'll cook for you. So they were on the honeymoon, and the wife was staying in a separate room, and the brahmacharis were cooking food for the boy, and the wife was crying, and she was telling us, I just want to have a baby. So, and sometimes there's many stories we tell like this. We should understand that our purpose is to practice bhakti. Our purpose is not to practice renunciation. But devotees who are more in the bodily conception, and we spoke about this in one of our previous sessions when we speak about guru. Guru, this is described by Sanatana Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Hari Bhakti Vilas, that guru, for some people, it's really important that he doesn't have black teeth, that he comes from a Brahmin family, that he's beautiful looking, he's handsome, this and this, because people are more in the bodily conception of life. But those qualities are not absolute. It's not that the guru has to have those things. But if someone's more in the bodily conception of life, they'll see those things as being important. So similarly, devotees who are more in the bodily conception, they'll look at a sadhu and see, oh, he's fat, that we don't appreciate him, or he sleeps too much, or he's a grihasta, I don't appreciate that, we want to have someone who's a sannyasi. They'll see things in an external way. But we should understand, in the second chapter of the first canto of the Bhagavatam is a very important verse, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Gyana Yat Yashabairagyam Gyanam Shayada Hoitakam, that if we just practice bhakti to Krishna, then automatically Janayat Yashivairagyam Gyanam Shayada Hoitakam, automatically knowledge and detachment will come. They're servants of those things. So Srila Prabhupada, he speaks about this in different places. There's a nice letter I want to show you. Prabhupada wrote in 1970 to one of his early disciples, to Jai Govinda Prabhu. And he said, you said that your job is Maya, but you must know that Maya is illusion. And as soon as there's absence of Krishna consciousness, that is Maya. But you're working just to help and push Krishna's interest. Therefore, it's not Maya. Anything dovetailed in Krishna consciousness is real renouncement. So do not forget Krishna in any circumstance of life. And Krishna will save you from all the pitfalls of material existence. And many times we see, as an institution in the past, devotees, they've been inspired by renunciation, by knowledge, and it's an easy way it's a kind of easy carrot to dangle in front of new devotees, to encourage them in these kind of things. It's an easy way to make people move, but that's not what's wanted. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this also in Chaitanya Siksamrita. I'll give you another statement from him now. This is from chapter 5, part 2. He says, renunciation arising from bhakti is the beauty of devotional life. To become renounced and then search out bhakti is unnatural, and in most cases, disastrous. Let's read that again. To become renounced and then search out bhakti is unnatural and in most cases disastrous. It's the wrong sequence, but so many devotees, because we're bahirmukh janas, we're external persons, we see things in an external way. And Srila Prabhupada many times, he would chastise devotees for sleeping too much or for eating too much. Bhaktivinoda goes on, renunciation or detachment is a special ornament of the person's attained bhav. It is not an anga of bhakti, but a symptom of bhakti. It's a very, very important point. Bhaktivinoda puts it in such a simple way. Renunciation is not an anga of bhakti, but it's a symptom of bhakti. And if we try to practice that renunciation in the beginning and then we search out bhakti, that's unnatural and in most cases disastrous. Well, there you have, in one sentence, you have the history of the Hare Krishna movement for the last 20 years or so. And the fall down of so many sannyasis and even gurus and things. To become renounced and then search out bhakti is unnatural and in most cases disastrous. We simply need to practice bhakti, but we need to practice bhakti in an honest way. And therefore we may get married, we may practice vanashram in that way, but the devotees should understand that we're not dependent upon that thing. So Narottam Das Thakur, he speaks about the nyasis and then he speaks about the karmis, or the fruit of workers. So in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he also speaks about this. He says, Mridishradasya katita svalpa karma adhikarita. That we may have some karma adhikar. And my Guru Maharaj, if those of you who listen to his lectures, he spoke a lot sometimes about what is karma adhikar, what is jnana adhikar, what is bhakti adhikar, what is the adhikar or the qualification or the nature to follow a particular thing. Someone who has karma adhikar means they have a propensity to follow varnashram dharma. Someone has jnana adhikar means they have a propensity to follow jnana. And if they don't have bhakti adhikar, they won't be so much interested in bhakti. They'll be more interested in following varnashram dharma. They'll be more interested in collecting some information, some knowledge and things if they have jnana adhikar. But Rupa Goswami says, Midhu Shradasha Katita Swalpa Kama Adhikari. He said, Midhu Shradasha, even you just get a little bit of Shraddha. This is for anybody who wants to take a note. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2:186. And I can put this on the board too. Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes this verse in his commentary on the 10th verse of Dasmula Siksha. And we're going to read his commentary about it in just a moment. Midhu Shradasha Katita Swalpa Karma Adhikarita. To someone who gets to even a little bit of Shraddha, faith in Krishna, then automatically he finds that his karma adhikar becomes swalpa. It starts reducing in a natural way. So our process is practicing bhakti. Srila Prabhupada also encouraged devotees to establish varnashram dharma. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Chaitanya Sikshamrita says that as long as a devotee has material desires, he must follow varnashram dharma, because otherwise that they may fall down. But at the same time, we should understand that our purpose is not varnashram dharma. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this. This is his commentary, the 10th verse of Dasmula Siksha. He says, such devotees, they execute devotional service within the framework of the varnashram system. So this is our third category that Narottam says we want to give up association with the karmis. Karmis means those persons who are practicing varnashram dharma. Such devotees, and there's two types of varnashram dharma. There's asura varnashram, a demoniac varnashram, which is not based on Krishna bhakti, and there's daivi varnashram, which is following Krishna bhakti, which is the only thing that we have any qualification to do. We have no adhikar even for asura varnashram. Bhaktivinoda says, such devotees execute devotional service within the framework of the varnashram system and offer the results of their fruitive activities. However, their devotion is not real devotion. These are devotees who are acting within the framework of varnashram dharma, and they're offering the results of their activities. But Bhaktivinoda says their bhakti is not real bhakti. It's just bhakti abhas, chaya bhakti. It's a shadow of bhakti. Their chanting of the holy name is on the level of chaya nama bhas, the shadow of the holy name in the clearing stage. However, if they nurture material desires that have no relation to serving Krishna, then their chanting is on the level of pratibimba nama bhas, a reflection of the holy name at the clearing stage. So we spoke about this before, the difference between chaya abhas and pratibimba abhas. Pratibimba is a reflection, chaya is a shadow. And Bhaktivinoda gives the example of a tree. The pratibimba, the reflection of the tree, looks better in the lake than the shadow of the tree looks like. But Bhaktivinoda says of the two, the chaya abhas is always better and necessarily better than the pratibimba abhas, because the shadow is connected to the tree, whereas the pratibimba, the reflection, is not connected. The pratibimba may look better because they may be practicing something in a better way, that they may be more renounced. I had a beautiful talk years ago with some of the first devotees we ever did a parikrama with from China. And we spoke about this chaya bhakti-abhas and pratibimba bhakti-abhas. And one of the devotees, it just blew his mind. He said, this is the answer. I've been wondering for so many years how it is that I see even sannyasis sometimes in ISKCON fall down to sense enjoyment and stop following regulated principles. But I see in China there's many Buddhist monks who are really paka and following all the regulated principles, but their philosophy is useless. So one is pratibimba and the other is chaya. And Bhaktivinoda gives a similar description about the holy name. Bhaktivinoda says that these persons, they can be called jnanis or karmis, empirical philosophers or fruitive workers, but they're not actually devotees. The Kanishta devotee who is free from desire for materialistic gains, anyabhilasita shunyam, but offers his pursuit of empirical knowledge and desire for fruitive activities as a sacrifice to the Lord is a Vaishnava boss. That's the Kanishta Adhikari. He's a shadow of a pure Vaishnava. So that devotee, he's free from materialistic gains. Anyabhilasita shunyam jnana karmadi anabritam. He's offering his pursuit of, he's practicing some karma or some gyan, but he's not doing it. It's not covering bhakti. And as we spoke about this in a previous session, it may cover bhakti, Jiva Goswami says, and his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it may cover bhakti in one of two ways. Someone may think that Varnashram Dharma or karma or gyan is the goal. And I'm doing bhakti so that I can attain perfection in my system of Varnashram, my position of Varnashram. The second way I may cover bhakti is that I think that I have to do this unless I get married, unless I act according to Varnashram Dharma, or unless I practice some gyan, let's say cultivate knowledge. I can't practice bhakti unless I have a bhakti shastri degree. I can't actually practice bhakti. Bhakti is dependent on that knowledge, but bhakti is swarat. And as we've often commented, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a long section in Madhuri Kadambini speaking about this, how bhakti is independent. And bhakti comes from bhakti. Bhakti sanjayate bhakti. Bhakti comes from bhakti. Bhakti doesn't come from gyan. Bhakti doesn't come from varnashram. But we may, in the beginning, Acharyas have said, there may be some utility for those things. They may be helpful within our bhakti. And therefore Prabhupada encouraged varnashram. Prabhupada encouraged some kinds of gyan. But at the same time, if we're practicing those things and we're putting too much stress on those things, then that's not real bhakti. But Prabhupada goes on. In the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is Majjhima Lila, chapter 8, Ramananda Roy delineated sadhana, the means to the supreme goal, in a conversation with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramananda offers scriptural evidences concerning the gradual levels of elevation in devotional service, and he presented each as the ultimate human aspiration. However, Mahaprabhu rejected some levels. He said, Iha Bahya, Agikaha, Iha Bahya. That's external. Can you say something more? Mahaprabhu rejected Varnashram. He rejected karma kandanis. And Bhaktivinoda says that these are considered the lower positions of these things that Mahaprabhu rejected, the lower positions of neophyte devotees, Vaishnavas whose shraddha, whose faith is tender. Later, from the level at which Mahaprabhu accepted Ramananda's expositions, began the platform of pure devotion. I'm thinking Lila Purushottam. When the first time we visited Czech, he asked if he would speak something about Ramananda Samvad, a real light, easy subject matter to be able to speak on in 1 week and explain everything. Not. We're having some trouble with it. So it really begins when Ramananda Roy quoted this verse in the prayers of Lord Brahma, the 14th chapter, the 10th canto. Gyane prayasamudapashya namanta eva. When you give up gyan prayasa, and jivanti satmukaritam, sammukaritam, or satmukari, it's actually satmukaritam, but in the Sandhi it becomes sammukaritam, bhavadiya vartam. That your life then becomes the Hari Katha, the Bhavadiya Varta, which comes from the Satmukh, or the lotus mouth of the devotees. At that time, when you hear that Hari Katha, Stani Stita Shutigatam Tanivan Manova, just stay wherever you're at. In other words, when you come in contact with pure devotion, just stay wherever you're at. It's okay. You don't have to change your ashram. You don't have to change your position. If you're a married man like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like Ramananda Roy, you can stay married. If you're a brahmachari, you can stay brahmachari. It's fine. But focus, Stani Sita Shruti Gatam Tanuvan Manobir, Shruti Gatam, hear that Harikata, Tanuvan Manobir, with your body, word, and your mind, you offer worship to that Shruti, that sound. And you prayaso Jita Jito Paisitaistu Lokim. If you do that, then you conquer that personality who is a Jita, who can't be conquered, Krishna. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary in Dasamula Siksha, where he speaks about Varnashram Dharma. In Bhakti Tattva Vivek, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also speaks about a similar thing. In chapter 1, he speaks about the objects. Again, Narottam Das Thakur is saying that we have to give up association with the yogis, with the karmis, with the gyanis. And Bhaktivinoda in Bhakti Tattva Vivek, he says that they have a different object of worship. They're worshiping the Paramatma, they're worshiping Ishvara, they're worshiping Vishnu in the heart. And he says that we find a few aspects, a few attributes of bhakti in their process, but it's not Sudha bhakti. It's not pure bhakti. And he goes on, he says that generally, I can put this on our board too, it's really a very beautiful thing. General religious principles in this world which pass for Bhagavat Dharma are all merely yoga processes which strive for realization of the Paramatma feature. We can't expect that in the end they're going to lead us to Bhagavat Dharma. The form imagined by the yogis at the time of Upasana, meditational worship, whether it be the Virat universal form or the form in the heart, is not eternal. This process of Paramatma Darshan, although it's superior to impersonal Gyan, is not the all-perfect and pleasing process. The conclusion is that Paramatma Darshan cannot be called Sudha Bhakti. The goal is Jagadishvar, the all-pervading Paramatma, Eko Pyaso Rachayitam, and Yasya Prabha Prabhavato, is spoken in Brahma Samhita. Their function is related more to the external potency rather than the internal potency. And therefore, this tattva is inferior to the eternal Bhagavat tattva. And he says, very interesting, that the processes of Jnana and Yoga are incapable of approaching the Supreme Bhagavan. If you combine Bhagavat tattva with Jnana, then the tattva appears as a formless and effulgent impersonal Brahman. You see it through the yoga process. You put on the spectacles of yoga, then that absolute truth appears as Paramatma. But bhakti is supremely pure. And Bhaktivinoda says a very powerful thing. It's very powerful for Bhakti Devi to see the Supreme Personality in any of his lesser manifestations. If she sees this anywhere, she cannot tolerate it. So you're committing something of offense to Bhakti Devi. You're disturbing Bhakti Devi. If we're stressing these other processes, if we're putting so much stress on yoga, on Gyan, or on Vanashram. We practice that Vanashram as a kind of safety net to protect us from falling down. Srila Prabhupada spoke about this in one conversation, a number of conversations. This was in Mayapur, I think in 1976. I don't have the date right here. But let's see. Prabhupada, go ahead and share it together. There it is. Prabhupada says, our position is that we are above Vanashram. But for management or ideal society, we're introducing this. So far as we're concerned, Krishna conscious men, we are above Vanashram. But to show people, the world, that we're not escaping, we can take part in any order of life. Now, this isn't the only reason Srila Prabhupada stressed Vanashram. He also stressed that there's one occasion the devotee said, but Prabhupada, we just chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, then why are the devotees falling down? You're not chanting Hare Krishna. You're not a Vaishnava. So we also need it for devotees who are not practicing properly, like a kind of safety net. Prabhupada said that is our position. Just like if I brush somebody's shoes, it doesn't mean that I'm a shoemaker. My position is the same. Just show how to do it, just like a servant is doing. The master is showing. You can't do so, just see. I'll show you how to do it. I'm not a mopper, but I'm showing you how to mop. So our position is like that. We do not belong to any varna and ashram, but we have to show these rascals. And those rascals are not just the outside devotees, but they're also people in this movement sometimes. We have to show these rascals, just like Dhruva Maharaj was a perfect Vaishnava. But when he was a king, he was fighting. Not that, oh, now I become a Vaishnava, I can't kill. What is that? He killed like anything. And when the Yakshas attacked his kingdom, he was killing like anything. And the Yakshiraj came to him and asked him to pardon him, so he accepted. He wanted some benediction. Oh, you're so great. Simply my request, you've stopped killing these rascals, yakshas, so take some benediction from me. So then Dhruva Maharaj asked for the benediction. You benedict me, I can become a pure lover of Krishna. That's all. The only benediction he asked. He was so powerful, and the Yakshiraj could give him the wealth of the universe, but he desired this benediction. Prabhupada says, this is a Vaishnava. He's doing everything, but his aim is to please Krishna. Similarly, even if we take the Varnashram, we do not belong to any Varna or ashram. It's like Krishna says, Maya Shristam, I've inaugurated. But Krishna has nothing to do with Varnashram. Similarly, if we act as Varnashram, still we have nothing to do with Varnashram. So how do we reconcile the fact that devotees have fallen down, and Prabhupada and other places said that we need Varnashram for the devotees? How do we reconcile that with the statement here of Prabhupada saying that we have nothing to do with Varnashram? Bhakti has nothing to do with Varnashram. And we want to practice bhakti. Srila Prabhupada came to the West to give bhakti. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give bhakti, to give Sudha bhakti, to give Braj bhakti, not to give Varnashram dharma. But people who are not qualified, they need to have some kind of culture. That culture can help them. But as Srila Prabhupada told Madhudvisa in a lecture in 1968 in Los Angeles, when Madhudvisa asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, I don't understand about this Varnashram. Do we practice it or not? And Prabhupada told him, did you practice Varnashram before you came here? And Madhudvisa said, no. Madhudvisa was a hippie living in San Francisco taking drugs before he joined. He wasn't doing Varnashram Dharma. Prabhupada said, your good fortune of coming to Krishna consciousness was not because you were doing Varnashram. Your good fortune came because of sadhu sangha. Our good fortune has come because of bhakti. We practice bhakti, but at the same time, if we have material desires, then better that we also accept some position within Varnashram. But Varnashram is not necessary for devotees. Prabhupada says it in a number of different places. This is a purport to Bhagavatam 3:13-11. I'll just read the highlighted section. Prabhupada speaks about Varnashram system. He says, but if one directly engages in the process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it may not be necessary. It may be, it may not be. It may not be necessary to undergo the disciplinary system of Varnashram Dharma. Mahaprabhu similarly in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he told Sanatana Goswami, Eta sabachari. Chari is the same word Narottam Das Thakur is using in connection with karma here. Give it up. Eta sabachari ar Varnashram Dharma. Give up all this Varnashram Dharma. Akinchana hana loy Krishnaiki sarna. And just develop exclusive shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. This is the Krishna consciousness movement. We practice Daivi Varnashram. We also practice Varnashram, but we don't give up bhakti. We practice Varnashram for the purpose of bhakti. But if we practice Varnashram, we're thinking, oh, I have to do this, otherwise I can't do bhakti, then that's some offense. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has spoke about this elaborately in Jaiva Dharma. This is one last section I want to read with you. It's a very beautiful section, a very astonishing section. This is from chapter 7 of Jaiva Dharma. And there's a conversation between Yadavadas and his guru, Anantadas. Yadavadas asks his Guru Maharaj, he says, Gurudev, householder devotees who are living under the shelter of Varnashram Dharma, what if they give up their behavior of Varnashram Dharma? Can they still be a Vaishnava? They're Grihastha. They should be following that, but they give up Varnashram. Can they still follow? Can they still be a Vaishnava? And Anantadas's Gurudev says, Bhaktivinoda says, Vaishnava Dharma is very broad and generous. It's also known as Jaiva Dharma, the religion for all living entities. Every human being is qualified to follow Vaishnava Dharma. Even outcasts may embrace Vaishnava Dharma and live as householders. For them, there's no Varnashram. For outcasts who embrace Vaishnava Dharma and live as householders, for them there's no Varnashram. Those persons who break the rules of sannyas, the Varnashram rules of sannyas, they may, by associating with devotees, attain pure bhakti. then they could be householder devotees. For them, there are no rules of Varnashram. For those persons who, because of their misdeeds, have left Varnashram, even along with their children, they can take shelter of pure bhakti in association with devotees. They're household grihastas or devotees. They're not part of the Varnashram system. So from this, it's very clear that the Varnashram system that Srila Prabhupada recommended is Daivi Varnashram. It's not the same as the Varnashram system that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking about here. Then he goes on, he says, those are household devotees, but they're not part of the Varnashram. They're household devotees, not part of the Varnashram system. Household devotees are two kinds, those who follow the Varnashram system and those who don't. And then Yadavadas asks, which is best? And his guru says, whoever has the most bhakti, he's the best. And if neither of them has any bhakti, then from the material point of view, the follower of Varnashram is better because he's pious and the other's an outcast. But from the spiritual point of view, they're both losers. They're both degraded because neither one of them have any devotion. Such a beautiful statement. This is the Krishna conscious movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. We practice Varnashram if it's necessary, but we're not hung up on Varnashram. And someone may be a sannyasi even, and they may give up their sannyas. They may become a vantasi, someone who eats vomit. But Bhaktivinoda says they can still be a pure devotee. They can attain pure bhakti. They can get married. And we don't care so much about that rules of Varnashram. We don't speak about this a lot in the community because we need to have respect. It's a culture, our society is a culture of respect, and we should respect the sannyasis. And if the sannyasis are falling down and getting married, if it becomes a cheap thing, then people no longer respect sannyasis, which has happened in many places in our society, and that's a very unfortunate thing. Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta established that sannyas to have some respect, to have respect for preachers, to have some form in our society, to have some rules and regulations which will help people, to guide them. So that's all guided by respect. But ultimately, our respect is there with bhakti. And even a sannyasi who gives up his Varnashram rules of sannyas and gets married, if he's still practicing bhakti and you criticize him, you're an offender. We shouldn't criticize that person. That person may be a Sudha Bhakta. For our society, it's a difficult thing. We may not appreciate that person so much. That person may lose their position and whatever, because in our society, we need to have leaders. We need to have persons that we respect. For that reason. And Bhaktivinoda, interestingly, also in this section, he's saying that those persons who are outcasts, they may embrace Vaishnava Dharma and live as households. For them, there's no Varnashram. In Chaitanya Siksamrita, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this thing about Varnashram, which I cited earlier, that if so long as someone has material desires, they must follow all the rules of Varnashram. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wasn't speaking about Vaishnavas who are coming from Yavana Malecha families in the West. Because if for Yavana Malechas in the West, to try to follow all the rules of Varnashram Dharma, you'll completely go mad. There's so many intricate rules. It's possible for someone who's born in that kind of culture. I remember well that there was a friend of ours who they wanted to get their daughter married, and they came from a very wealthy Vaishya family, and their daughter was a very nice devotee. So we found some other initiated devotee who was very handsome, just a couple of years older than her. He was very wealthy. He owned like 6 cars and 2 businesses, including a construction company. He's a very, very wealthy young man. And we thought this is a perfect match. But they wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't even consider it because he came from a different sub-gotra. He was a Vaishya also, came from a Vaishya family, but the sub-gotra was different, and therefore they wouldn't accept it. So Narottam Das Thakur, he's telling us that we should give up all these things. And what should we do? He says in this song, I'll put this back on the board here. Yogi Nyasi Karmi Gyani Anya Deva Pujaka Jnani. Iha Loki Duri Parihari. Duri Parihari. Iha Loki. All these persons, the yogis, nyasis, karmis, gyanis, Anya Deva Pujakas, persons who are worshiping different demigods. I didn't speak about that because we spoke elaborately about that in previous sessions, meaning persons who want to have a hero, even someone who's a hero, who's a devotee, but they're doing it in a sentimental way. They're worshiping someone not because of their bhakti, but because of their position or their looks or their position in the society, which is demigod worship. Duri Parihari. You keep that from a distance. And karma dharmas, dukkha shok, jebataki anya yoga, chadi. You give up these things. Karma, we spoke about. Dharma, which is vanashram dharma. Dukh, he says, give up unhappiness. Shok, give up lamentation. Now, at this point, I'm not going to speak about this elaborately. I want to finish a little soon here. But a question arises. Why is Narottam Das Thakur saying, give up attachment for unhappiness and lamentation, for being miserable? Come on, I'm not attached to that. But maybe we are attached to that. And a nice example, which is often given, is Karna in the Mahabharata. Karna was a great personality. And he had darshan of Krishna. Krishna personally came to him and told him, actually, you're senior to Yudhishthira. And we can stop the war. This is the only way that your dear friend Duryodhana can live. If you stop the war, and if you do this right now, Yudhishthira will worship you as his older brother. You'll become the king, and the Pandavas will worship you, and you'll save the life of Duryodhana. But he wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't Karna do it? Because he was attached to that dukkha shok. He was attached to that lamentation. I have a very hard time. We like to talk about, I've been suffering so much. My health is like this. I've been abused so much in the society. And we can't give that up. Many times we see that persons who've been abused, they wear that like a mark, a t-shirt on their chest. And they're so attached to that abuse, and they can't give it up. They can't give up their attachment to that dukkha shok, to that lamentation and misery that they've been through. It's a kind of identity with them. So Narottam Das Thakur is saying, give that thing up. And Anya Yoga, any other Anya Yoga here, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur comments, it means your family. Don't even be attached to them, but just one thing. So the first section of this verse, Yogi Nyasi Karmi Gyani Anya Deva Pujaka Jnani Iha Loka Dure Parihari. These personalities stay a long ways away from them. And then the next section, Karma Dharma Dukkha Shok Jebataki Anya Yoga Chadi. Give up karma, dharma, dukkha shok, lamentation, and misery, suffering, being attached to those things. Anya yoga, to other attachments such as family. Chadi, give all these things up. And then our third positive thing, Narottam says, just bhaja giri varadari. So I'm going to finish with a few comments about his statement, giri varadari. Why does he say giri varadari? I was contemplating this. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, as I mentioned, just gives a very, very short commentary on this verse, and he doesn't say anything about bhaja giri varadari, why Narottam is saying we should particularly worship Govardhan. But if we contemplate on it, it has a purport. Because Giriraj protects us from everything. Giriraj protects from the demigods. We know there are three different types of suffering, three kleshas, which Prabhupada speaks about in Nectar of Instruction. There's Adidaivika klesha. Adidaivika klesha is a suffering which is caused by the devas, by Indra, this torrential rains which are coming. And Giriraj protects from that. And there's Adibodhika klesha. Adibodhika klesha is like Facebook. It's suffering which is caused by other living entities. Or like insects when you go to India and you're staying in Mayapur around the rainy season time, and oh my God, the insects are so big they can pick you up and carry you away, the mosquitoes, and you can lose weight just by the mosquitoes attacking you. That's adibodhika klesha, or having some enemy. And then this adhyatmika klesha, suffering from your own atma, from your own body and mind. So these three types of klesha, by worshipping of Krishna, all of these three types of worship are satisfied, are taken care of. And Giriraj protects us from all these things. Giriraj is the umbrella of Braj. He's the umbrella which protects us from all these different types of disturbances. And also, worship of Giriraj, Bhaja Girivadadhari, indirectly Narottam Das Thakur is indicating exclusive worship. Because worship of Giriraj means you don't worship Indra. Krishna is the first thing he told his father, don't worship Indra. Rather, you should worship Giriraj. So Vyavasyatmika buddhi eke hakuru nandana. Worship of Giriraj means that we want to be ekantic and worship in a one-pointed way. We worship Krishna, who's the lifter of Govardhan Hill, because it's Krishna who will protect us from all these different disturbances. And by stating this also, then, in effect, Narottam Das Thakur, also, perhaps he's indicating that to the devotees who are reading this, that you should give up association with the yogis, nyasis, karmis, gyanis, anyadeva, kapujakas. You should give up karma, dharma, duk, shok, anya yoga. And especially when it comes to the anya yoga, then you may think, wow, that's really a hard one, to give up attachment to my family. How can I do that? Then Narottam says, just bhaja girivadadhari. You just worship Krishna. And that means that I may still have some problem. I may still have some attachment. But I'm not taking shelter of these things. I'm just taking shelter of Krishna. This is the unspoken instruction, or an unspoken meaning that Narottam is giving us by saying, bhaja girivadadhari. So I'll put this again on the board here. And we can meditate on this verse one last time, and I'll go ahead and stop, and we can take some comments. I'm sorry, it was a long road today. I wanted to cover all these things as quickly as we could, but in a nice way too, if we could. Yogi Nyasi Karmi Gyani Anyadeva Pujaka Dhyani. We didn't mention the dhyanis. It's in someone we mentioned in a previous session also, that we're not attached to dhyan, we're attached to the holy name. And by chanting the holy name, automatically that dhyana is there. Ihalok, all those persons, Dure Parihari, we keep a long distance away from them. Karma dharma, dukkha shok, jebataki anya yoga. We give up karma, give up dharma, give up attachment for dukkha and shok, lamentation and lamenting. Even give up attachment, take anya yoga, to our relatives, our family members, chadi, all those things, just give them up. And bhaja girivadadhari, just worship Krishna as the lifter of Govardhan Hill. So indirectly, again, Narottam Das Thakur is telling us, he understands you may not be on that platform, but at least philosophically we should understand this. If we don't understand this in a philosophical way, then how are we going to make advancement in bhakti? If we think that just doing Varnashram Dharma is sufficient, and that's all that I have to do, and Prabhu, I take really good care of the cows, or Prabhu, our community is self-sufficient, we grow all of our own food, and Prabhu, I know all about the different varnas and the different ashrams, and we're doing them all very, very nicely. You may be doing all those things very nicely, but if you don't have attachment to Krishna Katha, the Bhagavatam says that it's just Shama Eva Hikeva. Shama Eva Hikeva. It's just a waste of time. Bhakti is everything. We may still have some attachment to these things, but at least philosophically, intellectually, we should understand. And this will give us some direction. It'll give us direction in our association. It'll give us some direction in our goals. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there and see if any of the devotees here have any reflections, anything. Let's see if I'm looking to see who's still here. It looks like we lost Ujjwala Rasagya. I'm sorry for that. Well, then why don't we start with our saintly Gaur Nitai Prabhu? What do you think, Gaur Nitai Prabhu? It's very late for you. Let's see, for Gaur Nitai Prabhu right now, it is 10 o'clock at night, yes? Just about. Oh, 9, yeah, 8 o'clock at night, not so bad. Okay. Any reflections today, Prabhuji? You want to share?
Yeah, thank you very much for your very nice explanation. It's moving a lot myself. It's working in me. And nowadays I am listening a series of class about the structural review of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very long series of class, and at first time I feel that no, I can read the Bhagavatam in a proper way, and I can use the Bhagavatam as you helps us to understand how we can use this verse properly. So I feel the connection that what you say, what you explains, it's still there in the Bhagavatam, but it's not so easy to get it out. So my reflection is that what you explained today is remember me on the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, which is explained in the Sthanam. Like stay on that place where you are. It's not by chance that you are there. Stay on the circumstances, stay on that position. Like Priyavrata wanted to, renounce everything, but he was not ready for that. So his father, asked him, and properly, and Brahma asked him, and then his guru agreed. Yes, go back to the Grihastha life. So that's one thing which you reminded me. And the next one is a bigger part of the 9th canto, which is explaining that all the kings, at least the first 13 chapter, all the kings in the Sun dynasty, they're following rules, regulation. They are following Varnashram, but still they have so big problems. And all these things they protect the bhakti. And who is not using that bhakti, who is not practicing bhakti like Sobramuni, he falls down. So every situation we see that the bhakti will save persons, and no varnashram, blessings will really save anyone. And peak of that one king is following his varnashram. He's trying to protect a cow which was taken away by a tiger. And unfortunately, in the darkness, he killed the cow and not the tiger at first. So then his guru cursed him. Okay, you are not worthy for being a king. You have to be Shudra in the next life. So then what he did, he just honestly just started to really practice bhakti, and he went back to Gata. So he didn't have to go through this curse, this varnashram system. So it's very nice. So I think if you follow your advice, that if you already have some spark for the bhakti, some faith in bhakti, then by studying this verse, which you explained very nicely, and parallelly we are studying properly the Bhagavatam, then we will really get through these difficulties, because difficulties will be there. But we can use them for purifying really our heart and preparing for us to get to the 10th canto and get to the Goloka Vrindavan. So that's my reflection too.
Thank you. When you were commenting, I guess a couple of thoughts came to my mind that helped me realize some things. One is in the 14th chapter, the 10th canto, when Lord Brahma says, Gyane prayasa mudapasya namanta eva, famous verse, Stani stita shruti gatam tanavam, just stay wherever you're at. Prabhupada translates that usually as stay within your varna, your ashram. If you're a brahmachari, just stay brahmachari. If you're grihastha, whatever. But if you think about it, there's different ways you can look at it. In Stani Stita, what is the most important thing to stay in? To stay in bhakti. So therefore, sometimes Prabhupada told some devotees to get married who weren't already married. He didn't tell them they should stay single. And why did he tell them to marry? Because he wanted them to stay in the same position. not the same ashram, but the same position of bhakti. He wanted to preserve the Sostani Stuta in that sense means just stay where you're at in bhakti, because bhakti is the most important thing. And I was also thinking about how you were mentioning this story about this devotee who killed a cow by accident, and his guru cursed him, and how he went back to God. He went back to God probably before his guru. I was thinking of that. Anyway, we miss your Sangha, Prabhuji. We wish you were here in Hungary with us. I hope everything's okay for you in Mayapur. Thank you, Bhanitai Prabhu. Let's see. Hari Chandra Prabhu, what do you think of all this? Do you have any reflections you want to share?
Hare Krishna. Exactly. For me, it was very nice to listen that Bhakti Devi is very painful to see Supreme Lord in lower his manifestations. For me, it was wow. I must do something better. Because in my mind it is connected with my sadhana, and I don't know if it is a proper understanding that my sadhana is contact with bhakti, and therefore when I lose some steps in my sadhana, it's also mean something to do against the Bhakti Devi. I don't know.
Yeah, and Bhakti Devi is Bhakti personified, and she's manifest Bhakti Stu Bhagavad Bhakti Sangena Parijayati. She's manifest in the heart of Krishna's pure devotees. So therefore, Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he says we want to act in a way to melt the heart of an advanced Vaishnava. It's such a beautiful statement to meditate on. We want to act in a way to melt the heart of an advanced Vaishnava. We want to please them. So in the same way that Bhakti Devi is not pleased fully if she sees someone worshiping the Lord in a secondary way, that they're doing bhakti, maybe they're chanting Hare Krishna even, but they're meditating on the Paramatma in the heart, or the form Vishnu form of the Lord. Bhakti Devi is not fully satisfied with that. And so in the same way, Krishna's pure devotees. Someone's worshiping, and that's nice. This is, I commented, I think, in our last session, how my Guru Maharaj once somebody said, Guru Maharaj, Guru Maharaj was saying, I don't have any association here by myself. And somebody told him, well, Guru Maharaj, you have association with Sriniketan Das Babaji, who was a disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And Babaji, very advanced Vaishnava, is a guru with many disciples. The Guru Maharaj told him, he said, oh, he's a devotee of Ramachandra. He wanted to have association with a Krishna Bhakta. So the devotee's heart is not fully satisfied. Even they see someone's working very hard in Varnashram Dharma, working on the farm and doing so many good things. Maybe even they're cooperating with devotees. And they're having good results in so many ways. They have a good marriage and so many things. But they're not very serious about their sadhana. They're not very serious about their bhakti. They're doing all these other things for the society. That's nice, and we encourage them in some ways. But the heart of the devotee is not going to melt. We want to melt the heart of those devotees, and that their heart becomes melted when they see our sincerity and our practice of bhakti. Is that helpful? Okay. Ujjwala Rasiga left a comment here. I didn't see it. She said, Bhakti is Sukumar equals Jiva Doya equals Nam Ruchi. Got to go. Ujjwala Rasiga always makes some nice comment. Thank you, Ujjwala. Thank you, Hari Chandra Prabhu. I'm hoping maybe we'll get to see you sometime in the next month or two. Looks like we'll be coming around some of your part of the world there. Tirthakar Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Yes, it was really nice. It was like, there were so many points. I have two things. One thing is that it seems that there is kind of a very thin line between Varnashrama and, let's say, utilizing our psychophysical tendencies in the service of Krishna. And another point, if you can comment on both of them, it would be nice. And another one was, you mentioned at the end that we should not be attached to this lamentation and unhappiness, distress. And actually, I mean, it's maybe connected with my wife because she's working as a psychotherapist. So there is a lot of people who have this victim syndrome, victim role. And of course, devotees are not excluded from that. You know, they are a lot, actually a lot of weak people are joining movement, and they have this victim role. They want to be somehow playing this victim. So yeah, we have problem with these things too.
Yeah, two really important points. If we're just stressing our propensities, and that's Chaya Bhakti. That's not really real bhakti. How do we practice real bhakti then? We become confused. Prabhupada, in one purport in Bhagavad Gita, he says, therefore, we have to follow Varnashram or Sadhana Bhakti, Vaidya Bhakti, under the guidance of Guru. Gurudev knows where we're at. Otherwise, if we just speculate on our own, oh, I think that I'm a Brahmin. I like that thing. Or I'm a Vaishnava, this or that, and I just speculate on what I am. You may be a pious person, but that's not real bhakti. Real bhakti begins with Saranagati, when we surrender to Guru, and we follow the instructions of Guru. And even we may have material desires, we may not be a very elevated person, but you may be practicing Sudha Bhakti. If we're practicing Saranagati in the sense that we're following the order of Guru and following what he wants us to do. And he may tell us, you get married, you do this or that, but he's going to tell us, you get married so that you can practice bhakti properly. He's always going to stress bhakti. Is that okay for the first point?
That's perfect. Yeah, exactly. That's
second point. Yeah, we see this a lot. And why Narottam Das Thakur is saying at Chadi, we have to give up this attachment to lamentation and to being unhappy, and that because it covers a lot of us. It's the kind of thing we take shelter of. It's an identity that a lot of us have, and we feel we get some sympathy from other people. We get some attention by having that, and it's a very, very detrimental practice. It really hurts our bhakti. We have to give up that attachment for that and just practice bhakti. We see even amongst devotees, there's a wave right now, just like the ocean waves come, big waves and small waves. There's a big wave right now after Bhaktivedanta Purna Prabhu or whatever his problems that had happened. Now there's a big wave of people who are angry and talking about the poor victims. And we shouldn't be animalistic. We should definitely have sympathy and compassion for the victims. It's an obligation we have to our society. We have to take care of our children. We're animals, less than animals. Animals will take care of their children. We're less than animals if we don't take care of our children. It's very important, and we should do it for bhakti also. But there's a kind of misconception that all what's needed is to reform the society and to expose all the child molestation, and expose the bad management and things, with the idea that that's going to solve the problems. And people are actually taking shelter of that as a solution. And it's sad. We have to give that up. We have to give up that duk and shok, that attachment to that suffering in that, and just take full shelter of the holy name. It wasn't to the Brijbasis. They could have been standing and saying, Indra, we're really suffering, and you're making us suffer so bad, and maybe I'm going to die any minute because of these terrible clouds and things, and this is a real bummer. And they weren't taking shelter of that. They were taking shelter of Krishna. Hey, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho. They're crying out to Krishna, you please help us, give us shelter. That's the real shelter. And by taking shelter of that, it means you have to give up chada. Narottam Das Thakur says you have to give up that other thing. And there's some attachment for it. And if we have some bodily, the more that we're in the bodily conception, the more that we'll place stress on that. Oh, this is a very important thing. And it is important. My God, to protect our children is such an extremely important thing. To protect the women, to protect the devotees, it's an extremely important thing. But that's not the purpose of our society. And even if we have a perfect society where there's no child molestation, if there's no bhakti, then your society is a failure. And ultimately, you'll go back to more child molestation and whatever, because those things are not a solution. Exposing the rascals and trying to have some social revolution, trying to make some management solution, is ultimately not a solution. And the Bhagavatam describes that pashet paka viparyasam, whatever material solutions you take shelter of, 11th canto, the Bhagavatam says, you take shelter of a material solution, ultimately what you get is just something worse. It's not really a solution, it just causes more problems. So if we don't change the heart, Chetodarpana Marjanam, of the devotees by stressing bhakti, then even if we make everything perfect, and I'm saying this in a very bold way, people are going to be upset with me for saying this, but it's a simple fact, that even if we get rid of all the child abusers and we fire all of them and we have strict rules and everything functions really good, if we don't change the heart of the devotees, and we do that by insisting that we keep bhakti as the essence of everything, that we take shelter of the worship of Krishna, then the hearts will be contaminated. And there'll still be child molestation going on somewhere. It'll still happen. So those things are secondary. The primary thing is bhakti.
It seems that to actually be situated in bhakti, it seems that Krishna requires from you that you develop certain qualities, some like a strong personality. For example, when he was saying to Arjuna, do not succumb to this miserly weakness, right? Because this was actually distracting him from Krishna consciousness, that weak mentality. So Krishna actually is advising that if you want to be Krishna conscious, you have to become a strong person.
Yeah, and what was Arjuna's weakness? It was a bodily conception and showing compassion and kindness, being like a saintly person externally. Krishna covered all that also. He said that Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. He said you should treat everybody in equal way. Sochatina Kankshita, don't lament, don't hanker. He said all those things throughout the Gita again and again. But at the same time, he's telling Arjuna, you fight. But the fighting is for me. It's not for Vanashram. The whole point is we have to take shelter of Krishna, however Guru tells us. And Arjuna, in this particular case, was to fight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. A really nice comment from you. I hear it coming from your wife indirectly. Thank you. Siddha Hari Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Prabhu, a couple of things. One, I wanted to ask a question and then afterwards a comment. First, my question is, you mentioning this point regarding Chaya Bhas and Pratibimba Bhas, and you mentioned that example that somebody shared with you that in China, those Buddhist monks, they're following austerity principles and they don't have so much fall downs, whereas we hear about so much apparent fall downs amongst the devotees and or the sannyasis. So I don't understand what was your point there. I couldn't follow your example. What were we trying to convey there?
Okay, I went through it a little bit fast. Let's pick it apart a little bit more. So there's different types of bhas bhakti, something which looks like bhakti, but it's not. Bhakti Vinod broadly says there's chaya and pratibimba. Chaya means shadow and pratibimba is reflection. So the pratibimba is the Mayavadis. And the pratibimba is a reflection, and the tree looks better in the reflection in the water. You can see the color and the form of the tree, whereas in the chaya, in the shadow, you can't see color, you can't see so much form. But Bhaktivinoda says that always and necessarily the chaya, the shadow, is better than the reflection because the shadow is connected to the tree. So the chaya bhakti bhas is like the bhakti bhas of a devotee who's connected to the parampara, to initiation. They're connected, but there's a shadow. Their bhakti is not so pure looking because they're not able to follow the regulated principles, perhaps. But still, they're better because they're connected. Whereas the pratibimba bhakti bhas, they're also doing something that looks like bhakti, and they look better than the devotee, but they're not because they're not connected. Is that a little more clear now?
Yes, Prabhu. Now, so how does it connect with that example you gave of the Buddhist monk and the sannyasis?
So the Buddhist monk looks better. Sometimes they
Okay.
have Buddhist monks, they've been following regulated principles all their life. They're so austere and things. And they got some ISKCON sannyasis sometimes, but to speak of the grihastas, let's not pick on the sannyasis. There's a lot more bad grihastas than bad sannyasis. There's also bad brahmacharis who are not following principles either. A lot more of them.
Okay, now that makes sense. And but my comment was, to the point of being able to use one's skills in Krishna's service versus, the reason I was thinking about this because this morning we were reading this Krishna Kathamrita version number 7 about Lord Shiva, and I was really appreciating that practically each page of that book is like a piece of artwork. I was like, wow, like how the words have been, how the essays have been organized. And then I was thinking that this is an example of bhakti, like we were talking about, sorry, Boo.
We lost you. We can see you, but we can't hear you now. Siddha Haripa, we can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Okay. So, in the beginning of the class, you were talking about how the yogis and karmis, they have this desire for mysticism and they work so hard, but they're so much disturbed. And I was thinking in my mind that, somebody has worked very hard in producing these magazines. Our devotees have worked really hard. But the result is what? That the spiritual master is pleased. And I was seeing in the beginning of the magazine, so many devotees were giving wonderful comments. So it is not that the devotees are not working very hard. They're working harder than most of the karmis and yogis. But they're producing is something, a piece which can, an artwork which can be appreciated, for many, many decades. I was just thinking about that, the contrast between what is being produced by yogis and karmis versus devotees. Don't think devotees are not hard workers. They work very hard too.
It's a good analogy, but maybe not. My example is not the proper example. I'm actually, you can ask my wife, I'm actually a very lazy person. But you're kind. It's a good principle in general. It's like Vineet Prabhu just joined. Krishna. Okay, anything else, Siddha Hari Prabhu?
No, Prabhu. Just thank you for this session. I always look forward to this time with you. Grateful for your time you put in preparing the class, and it's just like watching a movie. Coming here, it's a fun time.
Get the popcorn.
Oh, you know what? Speaking about watching a movie, come on, I got to show something. I put together a collection of pictures, okay, because we were going to talk about yogis. So let me show some of those real quick here, okay? This is from one of our recent magazines. You see this guy here, and in the background, these are 3 different sadhus. They're doing this Panch Agni Tapasya. They're sitting amongst 5 different fires. One fire's over their head, and then they got fires burning cow dung around them, and it's hot. A hot day. One of them is actually chanting japa in the back also. And they're yogis. So this is one picture I wanted to show you. It's about yogis. And this is a great one. This is from the 1900s. Let's see here. A very old, rare photo. And this guy here, he has like this star around his neck. Why has he got this? That's so he can't sleep. He's a renunciate, so he can't lay down. He keeps that thing around his neck. He's taken a vow, and he'll keep that around his neck for the rest of his life. Pretty
I like his shoes.
Yeah, you notice his shoes too. They're pretty good. And this is a fellow. You can see him. New picture. Yeah, this is a smart sadhu in Bhubaneswar in the 1800s. One of the earliest photos. And you see this guy, he's sitting on a tiger skin, a leopard skin. It looks like a leopard skin, by which you'll get some mystic powers. And here's, this is an old, from a temple in South India. And you see Bhagirati. Some say it's Arjun. Bhagirati doing some penance, standing on one leg, which is a common thing amongst some sadhus. I have a photo of that too. This is from 1905. Here's a yogi in Mirzapur in India. This is from 1900 around. You see this guy, he's got ashes all over his body, and he's got a couple of followers there, and he's sitting on a nice soft bed of nails. And here's another one, another guy with a couple of disciples. He's got a pillow kind of blanket behind him, but he's sitting on nails. And here's another, this guy, this is a recent photo. It's a common thing. He's a Shaivat sannyasi, I think. He's standing on one leg, as we saw in that picture. And here's some yogis doing a similar thing, some old picture. Here's a group of yogis, maybe kirtan. And here's a group of, there's also a lady here. It's a little, just think, what is it, National Geographic. She's not dressed so well. But these are yogis, male and female sannyasis. Sannyasins. This photo was taken in 1905. And there's another painting I want to show too. I really like showing pictures. I'm looking to try to get a projector so that I can show slideshows. Sometimes I like doing that. This is a painting we printed in one of our previous magazines. I don't know where the color is for this, but anyway, you see Murari Gupta having his lunch and Nimai Mahaprabhu peeing on it, passing urine, and expressing to Murari Gupta what he thinks about Murari Gupta's preaching about yoga and meditation. Nimai wasn't very impressed with all that. So we'll stop with that. Is that okay, Siddharthi Prabhu?
But we should mention that this is NSFW, like they say in the beginning of the movie. You know, it's meant for adult.
Yeah, brahmacharis, close your eyes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Jai Gaur, do you want to share anything? Prajraj Gopal, who I see you there too. I don't know if you're going to want to share anything because you came so late. If you do want to, you're certainly welcome. Whoops, I just posted you instead of Jai Gaur. Let me just take you off here. Jai Gaur.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
The class was really awesome. I always get fired up when you speak about this topic. I had some notes. Oh, yeah, I was thinking like you were talking about you were sharing that quote from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying that renunciation is a symptom of bhakti and not a, I guess, prerequisite for bhakti. And I was also thinking that like and maybe you could comment on this, the thoughts that I was having that like after hearing this, we might kind of, someone might have the tendency to kind of let the mind become overindulgent, which is kind of like the tendency of the conditioned soul. So I feel like honesty and self-transparency are kind of like badly needed. So you can kind of, you get what you require and use the rest of your time and energy on bhakti. So I was just thinking about like, I guess it does still seem like, I don't know if you can call it like renunciation or it's not the extreme of renunciation, but it does still seem like that's somewhat necessary, or maybe it's not. I was wondering if you said.
We have 4 principles of renunciation. No eating meat, fish, or eggs, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. That's our, and never forgetting Krishna. That's our renunciation that we want to practice. We, at the same time, we also have some other renunciation which is encouraged, like on Ekadasi. In Ekadasi, it's not just that we abstain from grains, but we should actually try to practice some kind of further renunciation, try to make things more simple. And that's why on Janmashtami, we'll fast all day, different appearance days and things, according to the particular person. It's not that we're not putting so much stress on the particular acts of the renunciation, but that there should be something, we should be giving something up for Krishna. and that'll make our bhakti stronger. So it's important that we do that. It's also very important devotees don't get a misunderstanding from presentations like this today and think that all this vanashram, that's just Maya, and I'm a devotee, so I don't need to practice that, and I'm very elevated now, and I don't care about all these things. This sannyas, this is not a very important thing, or this or that. We should be very careful. We should always act under the guidance of Guru. Gurudev will tell us what position we're in, and he may tell us to act according to Varnashram, and most of us will act according to Varnashram. We should. Most of us act according to Varnashram. It's necessary. Actually, if we contemplate on it, Varnashram I'm defining here is the system that Srila Prabhupada gave us in our society. Just following our system in ISKCON and cooperating with the temple authorities is a kind of Varnashram. You're following authorities, you're being respectful to them, you're cooperating. Those are principles of Varnashram. That's the essence of Varnashram. And not creating a disturbance, because if you're a single person and you're hitting on all the girls, that creates a disturbance. And better you get married, even if you're a sannyasi or something. That's Varnashram that we follow. But we want to understand what is the essence of Varnashram. And I've seen many times devotees become confused, not understanding what is the essence. And it can be very, very easy to become, and we start reading books like Manasanhita, which has some verses in it which are useful and which are quoted by our acharyas, but then we try to apply the whole book without the guidance of Guru, and we become very, very confused, where it says, that women should be punished in this kind of way, and this, and there's so many different things which we don't practice in Kali Yuga, and Vaishnavas don't practice at all. So we need to hear it and always hear and understand these things from Sadhu Guru. Is that helpful, Guru?
Yeah, Prabhu, I like that. It reminds me of you kind of touched on this too the other day. I was speaking with Lokaram, and we were kind of we were saying that like the system of Varna and Ashram should serve what's favorable and unfavorable for bhakti, like and not the other way around, if that makes sense. Like we engage in Varnashram because it's favorable for our bhakti, and it helps us give up what's unfavorable for bhakti. And if it doesn't serve that principle, then it should be rejected, I guess.
If we're not under the guidance of proper Vaishnava Sangha, then it can be very difficult to understand what's appropriate. Someone may say, well, practicing yoga, doing hatha yoga is Maya. But then they just don't do anything. I don't want to do that, Prabhu. I don't want to be. They don't do any kind of exercise whatsoever, and they just get very sick. So we were reading this statement from Srila Prabhupada when he came to Hawaii. Unless we're under the guidance of Guru, individual guidance. My Guru Maharaj said some disparaging negative things about practicing hatha yoga, but he didn't say that to all the individuals. Different individuals he spoke in different ways. So we should always appreciate that. In a general way for our society, we don't practice hatha yoga. It's not our system, but some individuals may do that. But we want to encourage them that they're doing that for the practice of bhakti. Gauni Tai Prabhu, you look really very handsome there. You see the picture, Krishna Kun? Today's yoga practice, mud yoga. It's actually really good for your health. It takes all the toxins out of the body, and I'm envious. I like doing that. So is that okay, Jagar?
Yeah, Prabhu. And could I make one more comment? I was thinking, whenever you speak about Varnashram as a safety net, I get this visual of like a tightrope, like a circus, like a tightrope walker. And sometimes they're practicing, they have those safety nets far down low, but just in case someone falls and they don't die. But I was, the focus is on getting across the tightrope. So that was one thing I liked. And I was also when you were speaking about Madhudvisha Prabhu and Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying, were you practicing Varnashram before you came here? It was reminding me. I was listening to Katha by Guru Maharaj, and he was talking about Haridas Thakur, how Lord Brahma came as Haridas Thakur, and it was actually a great boon that he was able to come in that material position of Haridas Thakur, because he could develop some dainya, some dinata, and feel very fallen. In that way, he could chant properly. So similar situation if it's properly taken advantage of for devotees like myself from fallen Western backgrounds.
Varnashram is important. It's such a controversial subject amongst devotees. Why is it controversial? Because it's subtle. You have some people sentimentally, they have some attachment to culture. And then they think, I have to follow Varnashram, and Varnashram means that if your wife is bad, you should spank her, or you should even beat her. I've heard devotees say things like that, or you should behave like this or that, and they try to imitate some external thing, and they think that's Varnashram is very important. And then you have another group of people who say that, well, Varnashram is just nonsense, Prabhu. I'm in the Madhya Lila chapter 8 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we don't need that Varnashram. We don't follow that. Both are wrong. What we need to do is we need to follow a sadhu guru who will tell us what we need to follow. It's not going to help to have some Yavana Malechas coming from a hippie background, drug background, coming to Krishna consciousness and saying, well, Prabhu, I don't need to follow Varnashram. I don't need to follow any rules and regulations. I'm a pseudo bhakta now. And they're not. It's not going to be helpful for the society. It needs to be a proper balance, but it's very difficult. It's especially difficult when we try to implement it on a broad level with many different devotees. And the way it's applied may sometimes we have a big brush, and you just brush it for everybody, and that everybody should do the same kind of thing. Everybody should get married. Everybody should grow their own food. Everybody should be like this. Everybody should be like that. And then it causes problems. And that's actually not real Varnashram either, by the way. Real Varnashram means unity and diversity. And our strength is in our diversity. Our strength is not in our uniformity. Uniformity is not Varnashram. A lot of people think that we all wear the same shoes, we all do the same kind of thing. That's Varnashram Dharma, and that's our strength in uniformity. But diversity is our strength, not uniformity. One of my favorite sayings. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Rajaraj, you want to share anything? You came late, I know.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, apologies for missing it. First half of the session. I was just, something that I was hearing recently was Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj's two-part session at the ISKCON Leadership Sangha. And Maharaj was speaking about the dangers of Panchopasana in ISKCON. And he was quoting out of Chaitanya Chandramrita, I think, where I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur has delineated that all the desires that devotees bring into their bhakti, which is separate from worshipping Krishna, can be divided into 5 types of worship. Worship of Durga Devi for material desires, worship of the sun god for their health, worship of Shiva for liberation, worship of Lord Vishnu for for mukti, 4 types of mukti, and then worship of Krishna, which is ultimately what all devotees should aspire for. And Maharaj said that we are getting caught up with all these other desires. We're bringing all these other desires to bhakti, while we are in the impure stage, and that's fine. But the reason we are not rising up in our bhakti is because we are not, we envy the advancement of other devotees who are more senior to us, and especially those who are equals to us, those who came to bhakti around the same time as us. We don't respect them. We don't respect their advancement, and we envy them, and we may criticize them. And because we're not able to respect senior Vaishnavas, we're not able to respect the advancement of other Vaishnavas. We get stuck with all of these different types of, so to say, externally it's not demigod worship, but internally, because of our desires, it's like demigod worship. I thought that was a valuable insight that I learned from that.
When you make this comment, it reminded me of something Urmila, Mataji Prabhupada's disciple, told me a few years ago. She said that Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj is one of the greatest geniuses in our society. He's amazing. I love him so much, and his comments are so profound. Thank you so much for sharing it. It's such a deep, very relevant, spot-on points. Thank you very much. Let's see here. I'm going to read through some comments here. Jai Gaur posted that 5th canto verse of Jai Gaur. You're offending Bhakti Dev if you're stressing other processes. Love it. Gaurni Tai Prabhu on his team bath for 20 minutes. Perfect yogi. Hare Krishna. Beautiful, wonderful yogi there. We're covered with mud. Gaurnitai Prabhu says, you mentioned Bhakti Vinod, who told that Vairagya is a natural byproduct of the bhava of a devotee. My question is, could it be seen that Varnashram is a natural byproduct of the level of Bhakti? I mean, a kind of beginning level to those who are serious but cannot fully surrender immediately is naturally coming up. Yeah, when someone begins to practice Bhakti, Bhakti Vinod says in one place that the darpana, or the mirror of the heart, is very, very dirty. So Cheto, that Cheta, the heart, Cheto Darpana, the heart of the mirror, when we begin cleaning it, doing marjanam, the beginning is it's just like you have some oil on a mirror, and it's so dark you can't see anything. But you start wiping it, and initially you'll be able to see a little something. You can see some vague form. That's you. And that's our system in Varnashram Dharma. And so that naturally comes to us. Culture will naturally come to us by the practice of bhakti. It's not that we have to try to practice culture on the other side. On the other hand, we also try to practice culture to help us in bhakti, because if I'm a cultured person, it may please a devotee. I may please the devotees, and therefore I give respect to the sannyasis. Even the sannyasi may be fallen. Maybe I saw him with a girl or this or that. Somebody told me, the devotee told me, that, actually a sannyasi friend of mine, that he'd gone to Bangkok in Thailand. And when he arrived at the airport, the taxi driver, he got a taxi. The taxi driver said, "Hey, do you want a young girl?" And he said, no, I'm a sannyasi. Okay, so then he took him to the hotel. When he got to the hotel to check in, the hotel manager asked him, would you like a girl? He said, no, I'm a sannyasi. I don't do that. They're like, this crazy place. And then he got his room, and he went to the room, and 10 minutes after he was in the room, there was a knock on the door, and he opened the door, and there was a young girl. and he got really frustrated. Look, I'm a sannyasi. I don't, and you know, I don't do this thing. And she looked at him, she said, oh, you the guys with the funny underwear. In other words, some of the sannyasis may not have actually been practicing so properly. She knew something about that thing. So just by practicing bhakti, naturally we'll come to some culture. It'll happen automatically. And then Gaurni type will go. If someone is not a pure devotee and meanwhile rejects varnashram, is a symptom of the person's rebellious nature, not wanting to follow authorities. Yeah, what is the value of that? That's disgusting. If someone's not we should follow principles. Prabhupada gave us principles how to live a clean life in the mode of goodness. Take bath after we gone to the bathroom, clean ourselves when we're coming from the outside, wash our hands before we take prasadam, live a certain kind of sattvic life, which is helpful. And if we give up those principles, then it'll affect us. So the modes of nature will come to us, and also it becomes unpalatable in Vaishnava society when we see people behaving like that. Okay? Lila Purushottam, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna. I'm now laughing about the last story. It was really good. she knew something which you wouldn't suppose she was supposed to know. Well, I have a lot of points actually, because it was really packed, the class. And maybe I would ask you to help me to resolve my long-term dilemma. Because I really like these quotes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this 1, 2, 2, 4, 8, that like I like that part which really so clearly stated, like, these are not angas of bhakti. But then the second part of the verse was like, they may have some use on the beginning. And I have for years the trouble to accept the famous 551, you know, the Tapo Divyam famous verse, which says, like, the Rishabhadev says to his sons, like, prepare yourself for the bhakti by performing tapasya. And I was like thinking, like, what's the statement about actually? Like, do we really does bhakti require something which is not bhakti itself in that sense? So I found this verse quite helping to understand it, but still I would like to ask you, how does it look like practically? Like, what does Rupa Goswami mean that it may have some use in the beginning? What does it mean? And what's that beginning? Is that beginning like 20 lifetimes, or is it up to anartha nivriti, or up to bhava, or what's that beginning?
Well, first of all, it's a little confusing because we have two different platforms, two different aspects, I could say, of Vairagya. One is the example of the gopis. Their renunciations are topmost, and Mahaprabhu, he's exhibiting that in his sannyas. But the second Vairagya that we have is that we're told, you have to follow 4 regulated principles. And aside from that, then there's a lot of other Vairagya, which we hear about Chaturmasya, different austerities, which Ayendra Prabhu really liked very much, and many devotees do, exalted devotees. And where do those things exactly fit in, and what should we be doing of that? So, smarte visatatam Vishnu vismartave nujatachit. The main thing is that we want to remember Krishna and not forget him. And we practice these extra austerities on Ekadasi or something to help us to remember more. And therefore they're useful. But the main thing is to remember Krishna. And for us, these 4 regulated principles are the 4 regulated principles of freedom. They're not actually austerities. They're actually, what they are is there's something which is binding us to the material world. And by following these principles, we're meant to help to become freed from that bondage. It's not that we're doing it as some kind of conscious austerity. So Rupa Goswami, to answer your question more directly, in 1.2.248, he says that there's some, he uses the word pravesh, that there's some, they can help to bhakti pravesh, they can help to enter into bhakti, but they're not angas of bhakti. So Jiva Goswami also explains that in 1.1.11, his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where Rupa Goswami says that Jnana karmadi anabritam, some Jnana and some karma may be beneficial for bhakti. And we see that in the Krishna conscious movement, that some gyan and some karma are beneficial. Srila Prabhupada gave us some, and etc., meaning austerities. We have some extra austerities. Prabhupada generally encouraged devotees to sleep for 6 hours, take a cold shower in the morning. That's a big austerity. But if you do a search on the internet for cold bath, health benefits of a cold bath, there's so many astonishing health benefits from that. It's not directly going to give you bhakti. It's not that I take a cold shower every day and I'm going to get
Yes, so it brings me to the that if we would formulate it like that it's beneficial, but it's not condition of the bhakti, right?
So it shouldn't cover bhakti. Tat padartha gyan, tvam padartha gyan, jiva brahma aika gyan, 3 types of gyan. Knowing myself as a spirit soul, knowing the Lord, and knowledge of the oneness. Knowledge of the oneness of the two is detrimental, but the other two can be beneficial, but they're not required. Because if we practice bhakti by itself, then that knowledge will automatically come. And the wonderful example is Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He didn't study Bhagavad Gita and so many things. He just chanted the mantra.
Or one could speak about it like that it may help us to accept the habit of accepting some discipline in a form which is usable later, maybe for the entering into bhakti, because usually we start with the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, which is based on the like discipline and following the rules and regulations and injunctions of the Shastra and Guru. So you can some like develop maybe the positive approach to accept the discipline by these external things like that.
Bhaktivinoda says, I'll read his sentence again, renunciation or detachment is a special ornament of the person who's attained bhav. So based on that, someone could say, what's the necessity of renunciation? In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary on the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, which speaks about control of the senses.
Yeah, Vajvegam, Manasa.
Yeah. Bhaktivinoda says that this is not bhakti.
Yeah.
But it's a doorway to bhakti. So someone reading that commentary or hearing this comment from Bhaktivinoda may say, then what's the point, man? You know, why be artificial? I should just be genuine. Of course, they may even say that in a very gross way, and sometimes devotees have, I'll just take drugs or do whatever, but they're not following Srila Prabhupada. There is some importance, some benefit to having some renunciation, some rules and things, to living in a simple way. But we always have to connect it with bhakti. Otherwise, I won't mention it. I'll say his name, actually. Radhanath Maharaj told me once that he said, for years, I did, you know what I'm going to say. I did so many austerities and difficulties. I ate less. I slept on the ground, and this and that. And he said the only thing that I got was terrible health.
I really like that one.
I wouldn't take that literally, but if by that, I think he's teaching us that if we're doing some austerities just for the sake of austerities, what's the value of that? We'll just get bad health. But if we're doing it so that I can spend more time chanting, so I can be more focused when I chant, so my consciousness is more in the mode of goodness, that's beneficial. So we shouldn't be lazy and give up principles of living in the mode of goodness.
Yeah. Also, as you quote this part of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's text, I was noting down here that actually, because the text says like renunciation or detachment, like quite like synonyms. But if I analyze these terms, they're quite something else actually. Renunciation suggests that you just reject it, and it doesn't say anything about your position towards the attachment, either being a thing or anything, like sense enjoyment, whatever. Whereas detachment already suggests that you are already detached from it. So in that sense, it's quite something else. Well, like,
Yeah, to answer that properly, we'd have to look at the Bengali, and it would take me. I have Chaitanya Siksamrita in the Bengali, but to find that particular sentence to pick it out would take me some time. Would be a little bit hard. It may be that he just took the word tyag, which it can be translated in different ways. But where you're pointed, it's a good point. In any case, I think that it seems clear in light of the context with the other verse before and after. He's speaking about just becoming detached or renounced from this world. That's a byproduct of someone that's an ornament of someone who's attained bhakti.
yeah.
How is it an ornament? For me, what does it mean, ornament? Why is it such an ornament? Who cares? It's an ornament. It's the gopis. Their renunciation is so very, very beautiful. They just give up everything. They run in the dark of night to go and see Krishna when he's blowing on his flute. That's a beautiful ornament. It's ornament of and we think of Bhagavatam Das Goswami.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to ask one thing that I just couldn't figure out, and I don't remember that I would be clear on it from the text of Jaiva Dharma. What is actually Dashamula Tattva? I mean, is it the Bhaktivinod's composition, or is it taken from somewhere else? Or, I mean, especially these 10 long Sanskrit verses. What's
There's two books, Dasmula Tattva and Dasmula Siksha. Dasmula Tattva are 10 verses, which he included in Jaiva Dharma.
Yeah.
Published them separately also. And they contain like what he saw as the essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions.
But is it his own composition or
It's his own
composition? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I really like that comment that we want to act in a way to melt the heart of a pure devotee. That was beautiful.
Yeah, and that therefore we should behave in such a way too, because we never know when we're coming in contact with such a person. It might be one of the Gurukula children who just acts a little strange or something, but we don't know. It really is a very advanced Vaishnava. Or it may be a grihastha, a devotee washing the dishes. It might be a sannyasi guru. It might be a housewife. It might be anybody. But if we act in a humble, respectful way, a manina manadena with everyone, then Kirtaniya Siddhahari will always be able to chant. We'll get blessings even from somebody we might not expect. It might be some Saki Manjari or something. 5-year-old little girl, some special personality. I always like to.
One last thing, maybe a little bigger, because you created a doubt in my mind. There is a strong statement in the verse that we should, chadi, to give up the association of the yogis, and then you spoke about those incidents with Srila Prabhupada, and it came out quite opposite what I would think. That okay, you can do it for the health, and but don't get implicated with the like what the yoga is all about. And then it's nicely explained like that our goal is to realize Bhagavan feature and not Paramatma as the yogi's objective is. But my concern is about the preaching on the yoga scene usually looks quite different, because nowadays yoga was degraded to only something physical, only like what I see, because my wife, she's a yoga teacher, and we use it for quite a good preaching, and we can basically say that the yoga scene is a good field for preaching, because at least the people are inclined to hear something about the spiritual things and like this. So what we do is that we introduce like the mantra yoga, and we chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra with them, and different mantras actually, like Krishna Bhakti mantras. But the thing is that they would be quite okay according to what Srila Prabhupada said. Like, you can do yoga just for the health. That's what they do. But what we use it for is like to suggest that maybe there's something more deeper behind the whole thing, and trying to bring them to bhakti through their mind setup of, oh, we are doing yoga, although their motivation is like 10% material. So my my doubt now is it reasonable? Is it a reasonable way of preaching, or can we relate to it like as a good means to share bhakti with the people, with that specific group of people?
You must have read the book Prema-bhakti-candrika by Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Prema-bhakti-candrika, I don't know. No, not really.
It's a novel about a yogi, a hatha yogi, who becomes a Vaishnava and uses hatha yoga to practice bhakti, to help focus his mind and whatever like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur basically did the same thing, but it depends on what people are getting. If someone's coming to us, to the Hare Krishna devotees, personally, I'd like to be a Hare Krishna devotee. And if they come to us because they want to learn, maybe they don't like Hare Krishna, they're not so much interested in Hare Krishna stuff, but they come to us because they see you're a good musician, they want to learn music, they want to learn ragas, or they come to you because they want to learn hatha yoga. It's a Hare Krishna devotee, but they're good at hatha yoga. That I think that's fine, and there's no bait and switch. And it's going to be a natural thing that as they come close to you and make friends with you, that you're going to speak more about bhakti. And it's not going to be a shock to them that, oh, this person's tricking me. I didn't realize you guys are Hare Krishna devotees the whole time. My God, that's really, really bad. Radhanath Maharaj, once I was speaking with him, and I told him frankly, I said, Maharaj, what do you say? I said, please don't mind me speaking frankly, but some devotees criticize you because you're going and preaching to the yoga crowd a lot and things like that.
Yeah.
What about that? I was just real straightforward. And Maharaj is like a small child. He said, what can I say? He said, we've made so many devotees by doing that. So that's the bottom line. If we make a lot of devotees, Odarya Dham Prabhu, he gives all these classes. You know Odarya Dham?
Yeah, sure.
My buddy, and he's made probably 80% of the devotees in Ukraine and Russia over the last few decades. He's
or
amazing.
Maharaj in Australia and New Zealand. It's like huge. Never invested in that in the yoga scene actually, and devotees are coming. I know quite a few, even Czech devotees, initiated devotees who joined there when they went for au pair or some money collection in Australia, and they just went to some yoga club, happened to be one of the Devamrita Maharaj's projects, and nowadays they are like fully dedicated practicing initiated devotees.
It's a controversial thing in our society right now. I saw recently some people were complaining about Gorgopal Prabhu and Jai Shetty Prabhu. I don't.
Yeah.
Gorgopal, I know him a little bit. My comment was, first of all, I said, I honestly, personally, I don't read their books. I looked at some of them. I don't really watch their videos. I started to watch a couple of them, and it just wasn't for me. But I'm not against them. They're our friends. And in the case of Gorgopal Prabhu, there's no bait and switch. He's coming, and as a devotee, he's a Hare Krishna devotee, and he's preaching about things people are interested in. And so they accept those things that they're attracted by him. And then they see, wait a minute, what's that stuff on your forehead? And why do you have a shaved head? And why are you doing it? There's no trickery in that at all. And my personal feeling is that, especially after someone's been a devotee for some years, we should let them be an adult. And if they're having some success in preaching, and the success is there, that people are not breaking the principles, or they're becoming pure devotees in the sense that they're following 4 principles and chanting 16 rounds. We stayed in Odarya Damprabhu's ashram in Russia a few years ago, and there are all these people that came because he was preaching about the mode of goodness.
Yeah.
And nothing about bhakti. He didn't say anything about bhakti, but he's such a powerful person. They liked him so much, they just kept following him. And the next thing you know, eventually they're living in the ashram, wearing tilak and kunti mala, and getting up at 4 o'clock and chanting 16 rounds and getting initiated, following everything. So however you do it, whatever works. But as Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj commented once, he says, I've seen some bridge preaching, where they cross the bridge to visit the other people, and they're speaking about Vastu or astrology or this or that, but then they don't come back across the bridge on the other side, and the devotees lose their bhakti. What's the value of that? Because a lot of people in the beginning, they're not interested in Hare Krishna, but they're interested in yoga, or they're interested in Vastu, they're interested in astrology. And I don't see a problem if somebody says, I'm a Hare Krishna devotee, and I'm teaching about astrology, and I'm teaching about Vastu, I'm teaching about yoga, and they know you're a Hare Krishna devotee from the beginning, but you're just not pushing the Hare Krishna thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
At a certain point, when they become purified and they can start understanding, then you say, well, actually, if you really want to understand the planets, you got to read the Bhagavatam, you have to understand Krishna and the demigods and like that. Or yoga, if you really want to understand what real yoga means, like you guys do, then you start speaking about bhakti. Bhakti is the topmost yoga. I think that's great. I'm all for that. It's not my personal thing that I do. I'm the guy who has all the verses and Prema-bhakti-candrika and all that stuff, and ragas and a harmonium. That's my thing. I'm not into the astrology and the yoga thing and whatever, but they're my friends. I love them. It's really an important thing. And I respect it, however preachers are able to do it. You guys are staying there in Czech with all those crazy people, I've seen them. In bhakti, if you can do that, I take the dust of your feet. It's a really special thing. And same thing here in Hungary, the devotees are going out and doing food for life. What is food for life? Who cares about that? You can say it's not bhakti, but because they appreciate all the Hare Krishna devotees. They're feeding people. And it helps, it breaks down some barriers, and people can come to bhakti. So many examples of that. Anybody else want to say any comments? Krishna Kun has something. Can you come closer so they can hear you?
Yeah.
So I see you. Do you want to turn the camera also? Okay. We can hear your voice. Speak loudly.
Thank you for that question and discussion about yoga. Some devotees had a really nice success, like Devamrita Maharaj and Udaya Damprabhu. There are also others. I remember Sachinanda Maharaj bitterly complaining to us once. And this is what he said. We are doing all these yoga programs and bringing people in. And yes, they chant Hare Krishna for some time, but they are interested in yoga. They don't want to be a devotee. And so he was very disappointed, and he basically felt that he should focus in a different way. So I just wanted to share that with.
Yeah, and I think really depends on the amount and the quality of association they can get with the devotees.
That's a good point.
If they only get, one weekend and that's it, just a couple of days, it's not enough for most people. They need more time. And it depends on the potency of the devotee also. I've seen pictures on our society, on our Facebook and places, where devotees are complaining and criticizing devotees who are teaching yoga, and you see some pictures of this young boy and young girl, and they're like, the girl's like laying on top of him or something. It's this weird and you see the pictures, it's all couples in the room. That makes it's a little strange. Again, whatever works. If they get people to come to the point of pure bhakti, I'm fine with it. Siddhari Prabhu was asking what Krishna Kumaraji said. See, Krishna Kumaraji was just to summarize what she was saying. She's quoting Satyananda Maharaj. How Satyananda Maharaj a few years ago told Krishna Kunda and I how he was dissatisfied with the yoga preaching, because the people, you go there and preach to them about yoga, but they're not interested in bhakti, they're just interested in yoga. And so he didn't want to pursue that much more. And I was commenting, well, it depends on a number of things, how much time they spend with the devotees, what's the quality of time. They're also doing some chanting or things. Are they presenting themselves as devotees in the beginning? And then how powerful is the devotee himself, and many things. At the Bhakti Center in New York, it's really cool. Yeah. Many people go to study Hatha Yoga there, but they study Hatha Yoga from the Hare Krishna people.
Yeah.
They don't dress like devotees, but they have maybe short hair or shaved head, and they have kunti mala, maybe tilak. And they don't hide anything. And they just are friends with them, and they're damn good yogis. They teach them really good Hatha Yoga, and they make friends with them. And at a certain point, they say, hey, we have this Kirtan Yoga night on Thursday nights. Why don't you come? And they've got like some of the best Kirtaniyas in the world. They're in New York, doing Kirtan, and oh my God, they're finished. I love those Kirtans, the program they have. Krishna, can you have something else? Come around.
Yeah.
They can't hear you from there.
Can you hear me now?
It's better, yeah. Thank you.
I love this point about how it's very painful for Bhakti Devi to see the Supreme Lord in any of his lesser manifestations or expansions. And I marked how Paramatma Darshan cannot be called Shuddha Bhakti. And I remember that Gurudev spoke about this a number of times. I heard him say that there is no such thing as love for Paramatma. There is respect for Paramatma, but there is no love for Paramatma. And I was just remembering Gurudev's comment on this.
Thank you.
And I was thinking, why is that? It seems that it's connected to primary and secondary names of Krishna. I'm not sure about that. I'm kind of asking.
Okay, you're opening another can up there. It's a little.
I'm sorry.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani speaks about Mukhya and Gona Nam, or primary and secondary names. Primary names are names of Krishna which have to do with his pastimes, and secondary names are names like Shrishtikrit and Jagadishvara, names which speak about his position, Paramatma, his position in terms of the material universe. And only the primary names were Krishna's Nandan Krishna, Yashoda Nandan, he's Radha Raman. Those primary names indicate pastimes, and those names give Krishna prem, and they give Braj Bas, residence in Braj. Whereas the secondary names, they don't. There's some purification there, but they don't do that. So, yeah, there's some connection in that way. Could one call it Shanta Ras? Yeah, it's some impersonal thing.
The relationship to Paramatma.
Yeah, it's Bhagavan. It's a personal feature of Bhagavan, but it's Shanta. Rajraj Gopal made a nice comment speaking about how he appreciates so much Satyananda Maharaj. And whenever he does his japa workshops for newcomers, I hear some of them say, I want whatever the Swami has. Maharaj's personal conviction and sadhana is very easily discernible, and it catches the attention of common materialists. Yeah, I've seen that. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj did a similar thing too. I love Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and he was so kind to me. He really gave a lot of affection to me, and I attended one of his seminars once in Mayapur, and it was kind of I'm sorry to put it in a negative way, it was kind of a new age, kind of feely good thing, it seemed like to me. And at one point he said, turn to the person next to you and tell them some intensely intimate thing. And I just don't do that. I that's completely against my nature, and it was really awkward for me. And afterwards, I went up to see Maharaj, and he could see something on my face. I was a little, because I really liked him, and I really appreciated him, but I just really didn't like the program. And I was trying to digest. And Maharaj just looked at me, and immediately, without me saying anything, he said, Madhavananda, this is not for you. This is for another certain class of persons. And so Satchidananda Maharaj also sometimes in his japa things, he stresses so much sitting straight and breathing and feel like you have a plate on your head, and does all these things, and visualization. He does all these visualization exercises and stuff. And it's great. It really is really, really good for new people. But frankly, for me personally, it's just not my thing. But it works. It brings people in and brings them all the way to Radhakund and Braj Bhav and worship Srimati Radharani. So I appreciate it. Okay, we're really late. Let's go ahead and stop. And thank you for taking all your time so much. And next week, as far as I know, let me just look at it real quick. Yeah, next week should be just fine, right, Krishna Kun? Today, next week's the 12th of April. Okay, should be just fine.
I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah, but coming up in a few weeks, things are gonna start going crazy when we go to Ukraine and start traveling. And I don't know what it'll be like in Ukraine if we can do our session. I'll try to. I'll very much try to. I would like if maybe I should mention it in our WhatsApp chat, but if devotees could tell us if this is a good time to start that we had, or an hour earlier or an hour later would be better for them. We could adjust either way. Okay, so thank you very much to everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha Patitanam